So franchising is the same thing. If they come over and hand their life savings of a baby over to us and say, please take care of this, like this needs to work for me and my family, you got to be a really good steward of that investment and realize the impact that you have if you don't do that well.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to Behind the Franchise. Super excited. We've got Kristopher Stuart here with Bloomin Blinds for this episode. Kris, I think we met, you're just active on LinkedIn, and I was like, wow, this dude's got some cool opinions, interesting guy. We DM'd back and forth, and then we finally met up in person, and I was just like, let's talk more. So thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to go back and forth, kind of follow your kind of notoriety on LinkedIn, I guess, too. And as you were building, what you were doing with Flamo and stuff, it was cool to, I think first time we actually met in person was EFC, emerging franchisor in Austin, 24 this year. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, no, thanks again. And maybe just for the audience, give us kind of your quick background, and then what you're doing with Bloomin Blinds now.
Yeah. I was mom's first employee, as I like to say. My brothers teased me with calling me the alpha one day, and I was like, "Oh, that was a mistake. I'm gonna embrace that one." So, but yeah, so I worked for mom, and then mom employed her oldest son and her youngest son, as I was the middle, and already there. And so that was the gig from 9/11/2001, which was our brand anniversary in the state of Texas.
Wow.
All the way through 2014 when we franchised. We ran a franchise and retail side until 2017 when we sold the retail operation to our then office manager as a franchise location.
Yeah.
And then we converted that into a franchise. We became franchisors only, solely dedicated to the growth of the franchise. So that's how it all kind of kicked off. In 2021, we onboarded with Franchise Fastlane.
Yep.
And their validation at the time was it was a huge lift for our brand exposure.
Mm-hmm.
And that was fantastic for us. We had basically used the success of home services through COVID to sock away all our profits through the time and invest into an operations team and call center to be able to onboard the impact that an FSO was going to bring.
Yeah.
And they certainly exceeded minimums, but I think up to this point, it's kind of left a lot of white space on the table. And now we're right at the point where all the engines are running, and we've got, like you said, some technology and stuff about to be deployed piece by piece starting now.
Yeah.
So pretty exciting time. I think Franchise Fastlane does a really good job of talking about our brand and involving the emotional appeal to the franchisee of the level of involvement necessary to do us right.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of like all the lighters are coming together to make a blowtorch right now. And it's this year, 25 is going to be the banner year for our brand. 24 years old as a brand. We'll be 11 years old as a franchise system. So I think this is going to be the one that's going to make all our franchisees the most money and gain us the most notoriety for the ease with which that is possible with technology. And the forward lean into it is going to change the expectation of certainly of our brand on the local level, as well as I think home service franchising as a whole. So it's going to be exciting times.
That's exciting. No, I love that. And jumping in, I think first topic of conversation, you talked about being your mom's first hire, and you've got an interesting background for this, right? I know you were a firefighter for a long time, and you were kind of doing both things at once. That seems hard. Tell me about that.
At the time, the window covering gig working for mom was a job.
Yeah.
This thing wasn't intended to be a franchise system.
Yeah.
And so lack of retirement, lack of future opportunity. When we first moved to Dallas, I met my wife my now wife, mother of my children, within 3 months of being here.
That's convenient.
So Yeah, right. Didn't have to do a lot of shopping in Texas.
Yeah.
6 foot tall blonde in
Worked
Dallas.
out.
Like, I'll take it. Thanks, God.
Yeah.
So anyway, like a couple years in, I'm starting to think family, retirement, longevity, and
Sure.
a mom and son's local operation, slinging blinds, just wasn't cutting it. So looking for a way to be more, to have more impact, I guess, to give back more than just buying and selling blinds and blind parts and services.
Yeah.
I'd always had the allure. My parents pissed me off when I was like 7, and I dug in the yard and cut a gas line, thinking I was going to dig a tunnel out of there. And so I met the fire department very early on and realized that gloved finger wagging in your face, man, that left a mark.
There's some power behind that glove. Yeah.
Yeah, we call it trauma now, I guess. But,
yeah.
So anyways, that was the chase. I was like, okay, I can do this. And at the time, I thought I was just going to go to fire academy and become a firefighter, and that would be the gig. I could just ride backwards and, put in a retirement, and that was what it was going to be. And it turned into a 12-plus year journey with 10 years as a paid career firefighter.
That's
and
awesome.
2 as a volunteer. And the entire time I was doing retail window coverings on the side, or I guess they were both full-time-ish gigs.
Sure.
Fire was 24 on, 48 off. So the most I'd ever work on a work week was 2 days out of the blind selling opportunity during the midweek. But that was such a stress reliever. The fire department from a family business. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, that was so high stress. Like, no, I went to the fire department to be robotic.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. There's a process for everything. You have to operate in a certain way. Yeah.
You have a if this then what for everything you may encounter. And if you haven't encountered it, you have an evaluation process to consider what's important first.
Right.
So you can, the whole job is just providing order out of chaos.
Yeah.
Which, okay, I can do that. Once I realized that franchising and firefighting are kind of the same, like the identity crisis of leaving the uniform and just being a franchise became kind of just a carryover. They're both, it sounds pretentious, but they're both, let's use impact. They're both impacting somebody's life from that point forward.
Yeah.
Once they either hand you their child who can't breathe at 3:00 in the morning because they've got croup or whatever, and that they never heard that barking cough before, and they're, you show up in uniform in a shiny red truck, and here comes a 5-year-old in their arms going, "Hey, new guy, here's my kid."
Right.
And you're like, okay, that's new. The new guys don't know what to do with that. This lady just handed me their kid. Yes, that's a level of trust. Exactly. That's the level of point that uniform carries. So franchising is the same thing. If they come over and hand their life savings of a baby over to us and say, please take care of this, this needs to work for me and my family, you've got to be a really good steward of that investment. And realize the impact that you have if you don't do that well. And once I correlated those two things, I'll admit, after leaving the fire department, there was an identity crisis kind of going
Absolutely.
on.
Yeah.
But realizing that the parallels, it absolutely, okay, this is what I'm going to, and that's kind of why I'm so passionate. You see me championing the IFA and those that are kind of willing to go for so many. It's the same damn thing as what I was doing there. I'm just doing it in a pink uniform now instead of a navy blue Nomex uniform. So
I think it rings
to do both.
Yeah, it rings true though, and I think the exact way you described that, right? That moment you had of realizing this isn't the next generation of the thing for me. This is not going to create that legacy for my family with retirement and all of that. That's the exact feeling people have. And I would guess, end of the year is a time when people are reflecting on that stuff right now. And so how do you, I think you break a complex topic into a simple translation of it, right? Do you guys communicate that through your brand values just when you're onboarding new franchisees? I imagine kind of telling that story and embracing kind of the emotionality of it has to be important to you guys.
Yeah. What's interesting right now, there's such an emphasis on authenticity. It's the new marketing term.
Yeah.
Dude, where was everybody the last 10 years?
It's always
Like,
been that way. Yeah.
it's always been that way, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, now people don't want to be sold. No shit. No one ever
Right.
did.
Yeah. I've
So,
actually always hated a teleprompter. Yeah.
precisely. And
Yeah.
so I think that's kind of been our edge through all of this is the
Mm-hmm.
genuine authenticity that we provide and what we are capable of,
Yep.
what we do really well and what we don't do really well, and where we're going. Like, we're at the point in our maturity as a brand where we know what we don't know now.
Yep.
And that's a very exciting time because now we can start plugging all those holes
Yeah.
and watch the momentum build with each one. Between marketing and communications, right? One of the biggest things we know we need to improve is internal and mostly internal communications. There's
Yeah.
so much cool stuff going on, but we get so far ahead of our skis
Yeah.
that we end up talking ourselves. We create a level of excitement and forget to talk about the build process to it. Right? The
Right.
AI is a perfect example.
Yeah.
All right. Just now, like there's so much exciting things about it that we have to learn. Just be patient. Like,
Yeah.
no one wants to hear anything anymore. We have to prove results. And so as the results build, we just have to don't say nothing. Don't say nothing.
Right.
Don't say nothing. And then once it's consistent across the board and that benchmark has been raised by those tools across
Yep.
the board, then all the lights come on and they never go off.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at. Is like everything, the curtain is still closed on so much of it. And you can see light peeking from back behind it. And any day now, we're going to start slowly opening little by little that curtain up, and it's all going to start getting pieced together. So,
yeah, that's exciting. And I think you kind of make an interesting point there. Like business has been alive for 24, franchising for 11, and you're like, we're just now knowing what we don't know, right? And I think a lot of people, you get into a business, franchisors, franchisees included, and it's like, results tomorrow, right? But there is this process of like building into your own shoes, building into the market. How do you guys approach your brand now, like knowing that you're in that space, right? Like, how are you operating differently than you might have 5 or 10 years ago?
I think the biggest thing is that there's professionals. Like, we've got it to the point operationally and reputationally, with us at the helm. Like, the next evolution needs subject matter experts in all their fields, and that's from the executive team all the way down to training, call center, operations, every level. And so that's where we're at. We've learned to step aside and find and elevate those people internally that have been doing this for 20, 30 years. Like our new CEO, I've known him for almost 8 years now, and he was the general manager of one of our product manufacturers. He's been running national sales teams for 25 plus years.
Yeah.
Like,
a little more experience than you at that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And thinking at it from a national sales performance perspective, that's what each franchisee is effectively a national sales representative.
Sure.
On behalf of their company, our brand. And so what a perfect idea from like not looking at it like government from political perspective, but performance perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly what we want out of our Z's is sales level performance, and like increasing your individual store sales is the whole focus for this year. And then we just finished a development meeting, and the entire conversation was about how do we capture the individual store sales as and really the answer is just step aside.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it sells itself. There's no absolutely no spin necessary when you have profitable, successful stores.
Yeah. And I think that, so last night I was clicking through like Google Maps, went through probably 20 or something locations of y'all's, looking at Google reviews. I think the lowest score I saw on a location was a 4.8 out of 5, which is saying a lot for a services-based brand, right? It doesn't take that many people to have a bad day and get pissed off at you to lower that below that. So I'm curious, how do you guys build that consistency, right? Because to me, when I see that, what that means is operationally, you guys are locked on this is what works. This is what you need to do to execute successfully. And I'm guessing that didn't happen yesterday, right? That's taken you a decade to get to that point. So what do you think are the key, levers you guys are pulling to kind of achieve that kind of awesome kind of feedback from customers.
Again, I don't think there's a magic bullet to it. It's consistently being transparent and giving
Yeah.
the customer the cons of their purchase decision
Mm-hmm.
before you ask them to commit to it. Like, it's not accepting the check and saying, okay, here's how it's going to be.
Yeah.
It's, hey, here's what you tell me you want it to do. Here's the product you've selected. Here's how it's going to do that really well. And here's where it's not going to perform really well.
Sure.
Are you willing to accept those compromises in your selection based on what you've told me as your needs? Yes or no? No.
Yeah.
What's the perfect solution? Great. That's this product right here.
Yeah.
And so when the customer makes a decision that is counter to the advice we provide, and they select the replacement from us again, that tells us that we have their trust, and
Sure.
the customer knows that we didn't, like, it is exactly what we said it would do.
Yeah.
Even though they're disappointed in the product, they trust us as their representative to that industry.
Yep.
So then it's like, okay, what does it need to be? And on the second round, we usually don't take profit.
Yeah.
We usually don't take royalty on it either.
Interesting.
Because they're not taking margin.
Sure.
Mute. Excuse me.
You're good.
AI will catch it. But I think that's as simple as it is you just educate them really well, fully transparently, on what all the sales tactics tell you not to do, which is give them the cons or what are the negatives of the thing. But that's really where people find value in the sales process, is a fully informed, on the paramedic side, on the ambulance, we used to call it a fully informed patient. Now it's a fully informed buyer.
Yep.
And really the liabilities and risks are the same. Like, this is what I'm going to take from you as your money, or this feeling, or what have medical side effect, right? This is the side effect of this decision as well. And pros and cons back and forth. And so it's a very similar, it's where my training came from. It's like, you got to know everything before you do it to them, or they let you do it to them, which is really more what it is. It's an informed patient that has all their cognitive capabilities, they're alert and oriented times 4, right? Like all the stuff that this says, okay, you can do this thing to me.
Yeah.
The same person is the buyer and really at the consumer level, and the same at the franchise level.
Yeah.
And I think that's why our franchise has done so well too, and it's so kind of refreshing when people come to confirmation day. Is it's like instantly, oh my God, like, this is far too honest. What are you guys hiding? And we're like, there's nothing to hide, because we're telling you all up front the good, the bad, and the ugly, and what it's going to take to be successful, what it took us to be successful, and what it'll take you to be successful with all this head start of 27 years.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting, right? And I think it's one of the unique advantages of kind of being this family-run business and then converting into, more of a corporation that's nationally scaled, and you've got, professionals at every section. Like, you guys were inherently authentic, right? Like, it was your name attached to this brand for a couple decades. And so to you guys, it's just second nature. This is what we do, right? Exactly. And so I have to imagine that's huge, right?
Yeah, we still own 100% of this between 3 brothers and moms. There's 25% still in S Corp. So like, it's still our debt that is funding this. This isn't private equity debt. And that day may come, but it's going to be, that investor will be an extension of our family.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
it'll make you make a better decision on which private equity partner to go with that someday, if that's the path y'all end up going with, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's the responsibility, to not use an abused term these days, but if we make that decision, is to make it where the franchisees go, that was awesome. Like, look at all the benefit we get from them making that decision, instead of, F those guys, they took theirs and pieced out. Like, that's a failure. Like, to me, that would be a failure, and history would document it as such, I believe.
Yeah, I'm curious. So the stage of like self-acknowledgement and bringing in kind of this level of professionals that may or may not be above your skill level, that's a tough one to accept, right? For any kind of management team, it's a tough one. I'm curious how that decision process went for y'all.
It wasn't tough for us to accept. I mean, we've always been that on. I work with my brothers, right? Like we are the board, if you will, of our little brand.
So you can easily go, "Hey, idiot! No, you're actually really bad at that."
That's almost precisely how it happened. So all our desks are in a triangle.
Sure.
And so,
I love that. It's a triumvirate.
Right.
Okay.
And so literally I was at my screen, right? And I pushed my chair back. I was like,
what
hey,
did you
bro.
say?
And the conversation too, but it literally took 5 minutes to start it and a week to 2 weeks to get to consensus of who that was going to be.
Yeah.
And it wasn't my brother anymore. And he understood the needs and was like, okay, I get it. We're at scale, I mean, but it was, it wasn't without pain points for him, but he was also introspective enough to be like, okay, I'm not the best to captain a ship of this size going forward. I need to focus on what I do really well, which is represent the brand and talk to him. So he's our chief development officer.
Mm-hmm.
And so with an FSO, it's perfect to have him constantly involved in the sales process.
Yeah.
And like, because there's not degree one at the helm of this ship. I mean, there is now.
Yeah.
But everything we know is street smart, right? Now we just applied book smart to street smart that are intimately close and don't have any risk of saying the wrong thing and oh my goodness, I was upset by that or offended by that, and now I've got to find a new CEO. Like, it's a different level. Like, it's literally brother from another mother, and that makes the communication. He owns a franchise now.
Yeah,
his family has quit their careers and joined the franchise system and is working together. His wife left 30 years of teaching.
Yeah.
And is now helping his daughter run the North Austin operation.
That's awesome.
So they're talk about the family intimacy of like committed to the cause. Like, what more could I ask for? Like, a lot of consultants will buy brands, and that's cool. Sure. Right? Like, that says something. Like, they're willing to put their money up on it. But a lot of them end up just camping on them as well.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. But I've got a guy that is the CEO of our brand that knows everything about it and has installed his family into it to the point where they've created
a level of commitment.
A family investment group to acquire additional territory. So it's pretty cool to have that level of knowledge in it, still putting their family money up for it. You know, like, that's validation for me. So all those things, they keep going.
Yeah. I mean, in theory, there's a day when nobody with the last name is in the brand, right? Like, you guys get to a point where potentially this thing has grown far beyond, or you guys have gotten what you can or need or want out of it, and maybe it doesn't include you, right? I think, do you ever see a future in that, or do you think it would be someone's always going to be there?
The joy of it is, you're right. At this point, we don't have to take on an investor.
Yeah.
So there's a tidal wave of momentum at our backs. And so that's a heck of a fun ride ahead of us. But if we do, like, we absolutely will get to be choosy about who that is. And so it's kind of
the
win
privilege
left
you get to roll with, right?
Right. It's win left or win right. And which way, and when we can be very selective on which path we choose and when.
Yeah.
And so if there's somebody in, if there's a brother in it or not, I don't know if that has anything to do with what we really want to stay behind.
Yeah, that's fair.
If that has anything to do with the last name or the DNA or family relationship.
Sure.
And what I can tell you is that the team that basically is the operations team now understands what this brand is supposed to stand for and how it does things and views the world.
Yeah.
That they're already not autonomous because everyone's in office, but they are already embracing what the culture and brand, really what the feel of this thing, when people bump into our brand, our pink brand, what they leave behind should be emotionally.
Yeah.
And they plan events. Like, we pulled 133 registrations for a franchise business network event this last Thursday.
Yeah.
And they carried, I said, this is what we want to do, and this is why I told everyone we're going to do it. And they said, gotcha.
Yeah.
And by the next thing I knew, we had all the content, all the email campaigns, all the AI marketing behind it. Like, everything was already created and ready to roll. Poof, done. And we crushed it.
Yeah, that's
we
awesome.
had 90-some people show out of that from California to Carolina, man.
That's
in our
crazy.
little office for a North Texas FBN party. So, I mean, that's the thing.
Plano's
Like,
where it happens, right? That's
that's
it's
where
the
it was,
hottest
man.
place
It's
in
the hub.
franchising.
That's it. But it was like I didn't do that. They did that, and
Yeah,
they did it under the banner and in total alliance with all of our core principles and everything that we codified in that brand essence guide that we spent such an investment on last year.
yeah,
And that it's so reassuring knowing that we can look forward because those that are actually in the engineering compartment that are absolutely keeping the ship running,
yep,
like they're beating the chest every
yeah,
time they make a decision. They're like, hoorah. So,
yeah,
man, that makes it really easy when the team works that well together and for each other.
absolutely.
It's cool.
That is cool. So I'm curious, like hearing the culture you've built, it's hard work to do so, right? It's hard to do that. It's even harder to maintain it, and it gets harder as the brand grows, and there's more and more degrees of separation between you and the franchisee. And to me, one of the critical hinge points is the awarding of territories, right? It's the process with which you decide to pass some of that trust on to a new franchisee. I'm curious, what do you think that process looks like for you guys that may be differentiated from other brands? Just hearing like how strongly you talk about the culture, right? So I'm assuming that comes through in that process too.
I think the culture, you say it's difficult. It's for me, it's not.
Yeah,
When we didn't have a team and it was just myself and my two brothers, it was just how it's always been, right?
yeah,
In the living room in the summer when it was like 1987 and we're playing, original Nintendo
sure.
in Central California. It was like hanging out like that. When we got a team, none of us had ever managed teams before outside of myself and the fire department.
Yeah,
So we're like, oh shit, how do we do this? And I'm like, I got a point of reference, but I don't know if you guys are going to like it.
Yeah,
And they're like, whatever, like it's better than nothing. And so
yeah,
I basically, for me, this place is like the equivalent of a firehouse day room.
yeah,
Everybody's sitting around. They're all specialists in the industry, right? In this case, they're all from the window covering industry.
sure.
And they're all sitting around studying their craft and preparing to respond to whatever question arises or need or emergency arises on behalf of their franchisee.
Yeah,
And so they're all just churning the topic. It's very loose. For the viewer, I mean,
yeah.
there's no walls, right, man?
Hey,
It's like
Bloomin Blinds, how's it going?
right.
It's
It's
like a
like,
tech office over there.
well, yeah, I want it very open, very conversational. Everyone's over at training in Louisville right now because we've got a
Yeah,
tech training going on. That's why it's empty room. But so that's what my point of reference was everybody focused on the topic
yeah,
and ready for the emergency when it dropped. And in that, the requirement to be that open and free with yourself and with your needs and have others kind of think your problem over with you and come
mm,
to a consensus solution that everybody gets behind, much like any scenario or tactical priority on the fire ground.
yeah,
Not a lot different.
yeah,
That creates a hell of a bond, and it also keeps very tall walls around the environment
yeah.
because people find out real fast if they fit or not.
Right. Yeah.
And
Sticks
so
out like a
there's a
sore
high,
thumb. Yeah, that's always
absolutely,
been my opinion. Is like if your culture is good enough, the people who don't fit will be really obvious, and
it's
everybody will see
self-correcting.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it absolutely is, guys in the firehouse. Like, if you don't fit that crew, man, you'll know in 5 minutes of being in that room whether you're going to hang or not. And
Yeah.
the same thing here. We've had people walk in and out same day. Like,
Yeah.
that's all right. I ain't mad at you. Like, you
Better
have to
for
go
both
home,
parties at the end of the
but you
day,
can't
right?
stay
Like
here.
they're gonna be miserable with you, and you're gonna be miserable with them. So it's just
Well,
like,
yeah, you just can't stay, man. Like, there's no
yeah,
opportunity. Like, there's none of that. Like, maybe we'll make it work. Like, no,
yeah,
I
yeah,
appreciate you, but this simply isn't.
yeah, yeah.
And
No,
and
and
again, like the honest, like the transparency, like
helps.
when we get an investor, they're going to require HR, and that's going to slow some of this down.
Yeah.
Uh, you may want to cut that part out, but
Oh no, it's okay. I'm pretty openly, it is what it is, right? It's a matter of
it
becoming a
is.
larger corporation, but it definitely has the potential to be a preventative measure, right?
Yeah,
Um, been there
you just
before,
need,
helped build companies before, and it's like there's a shift, right?
and there's a way to be irreverent without being insensitive,
I
and
agree.
I think that's what we do pretty good. Is we can
Yeah,
be ornery, we can be irreverent. We can kind of upend the apple cart a little bit without knocking them all onto the ground. Like,
Yeah.
come on, guys. Like, we can lighten up. Like, that was my goal with the FBI event. Was
Yeah.
like, can we not require a suit and tie? Can we just have a networking event that is just a social activity?
You know, it's
Does
so
everything
crazy.
need CFE credit?
Like 3, 4, 5 months ago, I realized the same thing here in Cincinnati, and we launched what we call the Cincinnati franchising network. Cincinnati is on the border of Ohio and
Yep.
Kentucky. We get like 30 people show up, and there's no agenda. There's no anything. I'm just like, let's grab a beer. Let's talk. Y'all probably doing some hard shit. Let's talk about it. And it's
Yep.
like, oh yeah, let's figure it out. And I think there is a massive amount of desire for that these days of just like, hey, we're all fighting the same fight. And like,
Yeah.
let's just figure out what we could do for each other, even if it's just having a beer together, right?
I think that is the driver of first COVID isolationist, kind
Yep.
of forced isolationism so fast society couldn't adapt.
Yeah.
And that coupled with the rapid onset of AI capabilities and the false personalities and
Yep.
avatars and things that are capable, like truly that authenticity and still having a human connection, even though you're powered by bots,
Yep.
is where it's going to be. And
I
those that
completely agree.
everyone knows how fast you can freaking go these days. How
Yep.
many people just slow down and be
Go
together
deep.
and just
Go
be
deep. You can't go broad, right? Go deep.
yeah, it just exists and almost like I don't know, I don't do the chakra thing, but like just like
The
those
Central
human
California is coming out of you right now.
pull right the pulse. Well, that was I moved to Texas via Washington State, so
Okay.
hey. But just being together, right? Like
Yeah.
that is so longed for in society. From everyone thought social media was going to make them like that personal brand thing, as important
Yeah.
as that is as a selling tool. Damn, if that personal brand feels inauthentic, it is you're
It's a
just driving a
negative.
stake into your own heart deeper and deeper.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
yeah, and I that's the edge is just spending time together. Don't give it ulterior motive.
Yeah.
Just be human in the same room together, and you'll hang on to humanity as we robotize it.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Yeah.
let it stay an exoskeleton, not the heart.
Yeah. That's a good little quote right there. I'm definitely going to use that at some point. This is a great time to bridge this though into this conversation of AI. It's what started our conversation. I was doing some research and I found an article from y'all, January 2021, talking about how AI is going to revolutionize franchising. I'm assuming if that you were willing to put the brand on it and talk about it publicly, then you guys were thinking about it long before that internally. You guys aren't AI practitioners. You're not a technologist, no offense. But what drove you guys to have that moment of realization? Like, what was the aha moment for y'all as a family and a brand to, say, hey, we need to embrace this. Maybe we don't know what that looks like, but we know we need to embrace it and at least explore the path. Yeah.
Yeah, I was sitting in Springboard 23 in Philadelphia, and
Yeah.
Ryan Hicks was doing the closing keynote on focusing on AI. And he runs the franchise supplier network with Jake Fishman. And I was like, man, like there's so many of these tools out there, different disconnected tools, avatars, voice bots,
Yep.
all these different things. I was like, okay, how can we use those? What we sell, wood shutters, right? Like you can't AI wood. God's been doing it for a long time.
Not yet, anyway. We'll get there.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and they're not lab growing it too fast enough either.
Lab grown blind.
Right. So it's like, how are we going to embrace these tools? Technology is accelerating so fast. How is our brand? What are we going to utilize to continue to ask for royalty when the product we're selling isn't evolving, but all of society is? And that it really genuinely became a chase of how to continue to provide value for the 5.5% of royalty that we're asking.
Sure.
And it was like, okay, well, what can we do? Like, what's important and what can we effectively automate? And what we realized, like I just said, is that sitting in the same room, physically two humans looking each other in the eye and establishing a connection of trust and expertise, right, where they understand the pros and cons of the decisions they're making based on the products we sell.
Yep.
That's what everybody needs to make that buying decision. Let go of that restraint to purchase or resistance to purchase and continue forward down the path. And so everything else became, okay, well, we'll bookend that really tall and let's chase automating everything else. And it started with like interior drones and Boston Dynamics Spot Dog with, these tools mounted to its back and sending it in. Oh, look, well, this is my dog Spot. Well, let me come in. Right. And that kind of evolved into, heck, all the vision all the way out to like humanoid robotics.
Yep.
With drill fingers and lasers, sensors, and all sorts of stuff all over. And we're just sitting in the living room having a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
While our 9 bots are taking 25 minutes to install 30, 40 blinds. Like, who knows what the future holds, right? But like, we're already thinking, we've freed our mind up around how we do what we do to embrace everything as potential.
Yeah.
And that opened up some technologies that we really home services hasn't considered yet, of how to deploy well enough to automate the thing. Everyone, I think, is very protective of the end result.
Yeah.
Like tiling.
Yeah.
How many dads do you know that can lay tile like a boss and just don't want to lay tile in someone else's house? Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Or maybe are just absolutely fit, right? All the handyman guys like that have a skill set, like everyone can make tile straight.
Yeah.
But can you tell me exactly how many tile pieces to get and cut and then pre-map it?
Not just by looking at it.
Like laser superimpose it, right? Absolutely, right? So, but what's important is to that knowledge to train your robot to do all that. And so what we possess is a ability to leave a customer with a positive emotion while we've departed with half of their money for weeks until we bring back a product and install it.
Right.
And so giving them that confidence of capability that we can do what we promised we do, that's a human emotion. No bot, no automation, no tool, no anything can replace that. So outside of that, everything is solvable. And I think within about 6 months of today is the roadmap to get it functional.
That's awesome.
And basically launch it and say, this is the evolution of this brand. This is what we believe is the new minimum standard in home services expectation and transparency and a quote ability.
Yeah.
And the depth of visibility into what the customer is buying is achievable now to be absolutely 100% experienced, visualized, nearly felt in so much altered reality states before a nickel ever has to be spent. I think a customer will demand that as the minimum standard, and I think we're leading the way with that right now.
Yeah.
And what's cool with the growth of the brand and how we've done it comfortably to scale, it allows us to do parallel successful large projects.
Yeah.
Because one of them isn't outbalancing the other in need or
it's probably my outside view, and I know far less about your brand than you do, obviously. I think from my understanding of you being able to do that is you guys created a capital structure within your company that allows you the freedom to do this, right? And that means you're operating a profitable business that's actually profitable with the intention of reinvesting money into building the next future of this business. And I think that's a hard thing that not everybody does. And that's, in my opinion, what I find most impressive about what you guys are doing.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And we're talking about knowing what we don't know.
Yeah.
We have been profitable for years, but growing as we did, evolving through the brand's evolution, again, another learning point that we can demonstrate to our franchisees is we've been as small business owners, right? We've been living out of the brand far too much.
Yeah.
And now that we've got a proper CFO, a proper CEO, right? Like the vast experience that they bring to it, they're like, hey, dudes, thanks for the reins and helm of the ship. Y'all go sit over there and we'll be right back with you when we're done unpacking all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And now they're like, you guys got some really cool stuff going on that's going to need some money. So let's look at everything and get it organized. And they're like, holy shit, there's a lot of extra money here. Okay.
We can do a thing.
let's get it organized, and now here's your money. So yeah, we can self-fund all of these projects.
Yeah.
To the point of function, to deploying them internally through the system and not being emboldened or beholden to anybody.
Yeah.
From investors to partners to anybody else. And so we're able to stay nimble because we didn't fall out over our skis.
Yep.
And the growth, the FSO brought us comfortable, consistent growth that we can train and onboard. Our sold to open ratio only exists for the month or so in between signing and onboarding start.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So at most we have 3 to 4, not 100 or 30 to 40. It's just literally single digits.
Yeah.
Transferring from signing to onboarding at any given time. And now with what we're going to be able to do with bringing the training out, pre-onboarding training into virtual reality and getting our trainees to viscerally have an experience with the product, whether that's looking at it at like 400 to 1 scale or whatever we can do it, and have them walk through the components or what have you. Like we can just raise the bar on the education so much that they start from such a different place in their life.
Yeah. It's awesome. A question I have for you. So you guys are building this all internally. You'll be one of, if not the first home services brand kind of implementing things at this scale. Is this a thing you guys start selling as a business to other home services brands?
Well, so that was the very serendipitous, God's plan, destined, however you want to describe the opportunistic timing of this event was so critical. So for clarity, we're not building this internally.
Yeah.
We own it at the end of the day, but we're building it, RevScale AI is building it for us.
Yep.
And the blessed nature of this union was RevScale's been building AI tools for years.
Yeah.
Right? So the architecture, the understanding, was nothing new to them.
Yep.
Franchising was. And so they were looking for a brand that was at the right momentum to be seen, to make a splash, to fully commit, and had the full ownership to make a rapid decision, right?
Yep.
The cash reserves to be able to,
because they need you to operate at the speed and scale of a technology company, which is oftentimes quite different than a franchising brand.
Well, right. And what we found in them was that same level of authenticity of, this is what's possible, this is what's capable, this is what we've done, and this is what we'll do for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
I believe you.
Yeah.
I trust you. Let's go. And that nimbleness, they needed us at the same time we were looking for them. And it's funny, the story is their system actually chased me down through the trail of cookies I was leaving.
That's
because I hit allow all everywhere I go online.
Sure,
right?
Yeah.
I make money off it. I feel an obligation to feed the machine to some degree.
Yeah, that's fair.
And so every time I'd go on a site, Synthesia or whatever it was, HeyGen or whatever I was using, I would click allow all. And so their system tracked me down. And, Kevin was like, hey, man, we can do what you're talking about. And I made some big, long, complicated question and reply, and he just simply replied back with, I'm your Huckleberry. And I'm like, oh, you guys are cool. Like, you got a meeting, dude. And it was just such a harmonious partnership from the very beginning that as we're starting to deploy, the first elements of it right now, we're building it. And it's
cool.
It's new and it's unique and it's not without its headaches, but
it's in my opinion how good technology gets built, right? Like I think it's our exact same methodology. Like anytime we're building a new feature, we build it with design partners. And they're franchise brands, and we get on with them and we say, hey, it's gonna fucking suck a little bit. And I said the F word here on this podcast, so we're just gonna roll with that. It's gonna suck for a little bit, right? It's like things will break, we'll figure it out. Like at the end of the day, we're on the same team here, right? Like we want to achieve the same thing, and our vision for what we want, our long-term vision is we are going to automate the entire marketing stack for multi-location brands. Like end to end, everything's going to be done for you. And that's hard, right? And that takes time. And
it's unique every time.
Exactly, right? And building to that, I think to your point, it's just like you can't get it done without partners. And I think the franchise and the multi-location space is so ready for this. It's so needed. It fits in perfectly with kind of the difficulties of scale, right? Scaling a multi-location brand sucks operationally. It costs a ton of money. So the way to do that is to automate the shit you can automate, right? And to take away the things that don't need to be authentic. They just need to transact. And I mean, I'm right there. I'm excited for y'all's stuff because I think it's just like rising tides, right? And we're just all pushing that tide forward.
I think part of the angle and our advantage in this and what will catch us the most notoriety once this is all fully functional, Bloom scale has all of the elements going.
Yeah.
Everybody right now, it was our commitment to the entire thing.
Yeah.
From customer acquisition to follow on, add on purchases and everything in between, right? And I think to me, that's going to be our advantage is we're going to have everything at that pace versus just a marketing element or just a product configurator element.
Yep.
And, there will be brands will adopt it for departments as an entire like marketing. They'll onboard Flamel as their entire marketing arm because you've got a great AI tool.
Yep.
But then they'll leave that alone, and then they'll go do another whole department, and then do another whole, and so they'll crawl because out of fear, investor hesitancy, whatever it is, and they'll eventually get to the point. By the time they get to full adoption from tip to tail, the size scale, data collection, and advancement of our algorithms and our code versus theirs will be so stupidly different. That's the exciting part is and everything is potential, right? We all saw, I love saying this, like you saw Elon catch a freaking rocket, right? Like he caught a rocket. He's going to do it 25 times next year. Like, holy heck, tell me anything is impossible right now. So it's just, I think those that are hesitant are just squandering opportunity because the market is so primed for risk takers, and I think the threat level is so minimal now because things are advancing so fast and nearly fixing themselves. I think that there's so rare an opportunity as there exists right now to not do full sends only. I think is just a missed opportunity.
It's the only way you grow fast and grow big. If you don't want to, you got to risk it all to get it all. And you could do so in different smart ways. It's not the risking, but it is commitment, right?
It'll never be cheaper than it's going to be now. Like it's only getting more expensive. And so the risk only gets greater, I think, as the technology evolves. Like adopting now, moving your train to those tracks, you may help lay the tracks, but those kind of become your tracks.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's how we describe it. It's always like, hey, we're going to build a custom solution for you because we know we can scale it beyond just your use point, but that's not your problem. So let us build the perfect thing for you, and then we'll go beyond it, right? And to your point, you get a hell of a sweetheart deal when you work with us now than what we charge people for products we released last year or the year before that, right?
Yep. And so to end the answer to your question, the give back to RevScale was kind of full transparency to impact our build, kind of thought process to it, help them evolve their franchise understanding on an intimate level, right? From our perspective, like as Zors, as the in-between between them and the Zs who try and position ourselves as a value add to the scenario. Instead of just saying, hey, stay out of our call center, stay out of our office, just talk to the vendor directly. Like we want the vendor to teach us, like train the trainer. And then we become the first point of contact, filtering most of the downstream points of contact to the vendor itself. And so it provides a value proposition for the franchisee to deal with the people they already have a relationship with, right? They've already spent 2 weeks in person, 4 weeks onboarding before that. So there's a little bit of a different relationship there, but RevScale absolutely is multiple weekly meetings, like in the back and forth, helping them refine and fine tune. And some of the stuff that's how we do it. No, you can't sell it. But like the call center, it's a Twilio based call center, but we need the digital platform, which is right now manned by people. And so what we're going to do eventually, bots will take over and answer that with my mom's voice in it. And we're, it's her nickname. We're calling it Carrie.
Love it.
And all the call center operators, those customer care representatives, they can now become inside sales on behalf of the franchisees. So they get to be retained, further incentivized. Like, that's the plan for that whole transition. Like, oh, what are you going to do with the people's jobs? Like, give them more to do and pay them more for it. Like,
to me, it's all about just getting people into higher value positions, right? Where it's like they can make more money, they can make you more money. That's the base level of anything agentic AI is take away the crappy stuff that people don't actually want to do, that's transactional and just needs to be done. And that's phase one.
Let
right?
good people win.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. And I think the exoskeleton, not the heart comment from before is that, right? It's let the AI power it, let the AI run the stuff, but at the end of the day, the people still make the brand, right?
Absolutely, every day.
I think we found ourselves an interesting stopping point on the AI conversation. That's a nice little bow on it. One of the last things I always like to do is just some 15-second answer, quick fire type questions, if you're game for it.
Send it.
All right. Franchise brand that's not Bloomin Blinds that you admire the most?
Not Everline.
Yeah. What's one thing people don't know about you?
I like Adele.
Adele the artist or Adele the computer?
Adele, no.
Okay.
Adele the artist.
Okay. Best piece of advice you've received about running a franchise system and who you got it from?
Sometimes the job is to say no.
Yeah. Love it. And favorite ways for you to stay up to date on AI that's not, obviously working with your AI partner, but outside of that?
There's a newsletter comes out called TLDR.ai.
You're on TLDR.ai? That just blew my mind a little bit. I love that about you, Kris.
Once I found
You're a real one.
Once I found out what it meant, like too long didn't read.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
That's so genius. Like, yeah. And then it's like 2-minute read, 18-minute read. Like, I love it.
Not that I didn't respect you before, but you gained respect in my book with that answer, just so you know.
Cheers.
Beautiful. No, this has been a great conversation. Before wrapping up, I always like to give you, the podium like a late night host. Sell your thing. Tell people where to go to find you and what they should do.
Yeah, bloominblinds.com is all the information right there. If you want a franchise or a window covering, you can find it all on bloominblinds.com. Top Nav will get you where you need to go. If you want to hyper localize, the website should do that for you. But otherwise, if you want to see if maybe your mom's got a site in her neighborhood, just go to the top hit locations. If you want some franchise information, I think the tab is titled Own a Franchise. But bloominblinds.com, accept all the cookies, and it should do everything for you.
Yeah. Do your part for the data machine. Accept all the cookies on the Bloomin Blinds website. Perfect. Kris, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it. Everybody, go check out Bloomin Blinds, and thanks for listening to another episode of Behind the Franchise. We'll talk to you another time.